So I've got a friend of mine who was doing some quite extensive research for a PhD, and it was really quite complicated data that they had. And they basically end up using ChatGPT to help them to develop the outline of their paper. Now, this was quite early on when ChatGPT had just come out. So there's a whole ethical debate around that. But the ultimate conclusion was you're just using AI to help you to formulate the paper. That is not your research. It's just a way of presenting. And they used a similar sort of prompt to this. And this, is, of course, will be in the prompt document for you. And I've put in my sort of made up paper outline here. And I'm using, at the moment, obviously, I don't know when you're watching this. You could be watching this in 10 years' time, and who knows what's going to be available then. But we're going to use ChatGPT 4.5, which is good for writing, exploring ideas. So let's put that in there and see what comes up. So what I've done, I thought it'd be quite interesting to look at ChatGPT's response and DeepSeek's response. And again, I obviously don't know when you're watching this, so DeepSeek and ChatGPT could be very different, and there could be a third option that would be really helpful. Of course, DeepSeek is at the moment free, and ChatGPT is free to an extent. This is a paid version of ChatGPT that I'm using. So you could use both of these or another one just to compare and start to structure your paper, dissertation, PhD, book, whatever it is that you're writing, and start to use tools like these to start to put together what is potentially your paper. Now, also, you could feed it a lot more details and say, so you could add some of your own research that you've done and say, also incorporate this. Where would be a logical place to incorporate this particular data within the outline, and start to build this. And as you start to build this, what you can do, particularly with ChatGPT at the moment and with Canvas on ChatGPT, is start to add and influence paper even more. So let's imagine, for example, we've got these 3 key arguments that we took recently. Sort of, let's take, maybe it's not outlined it in a way. Let's just take the last part here and just see what it comes up with. So you can sort of add this, will say if it naturally fits, or you could take that out and say information. Obviously, you probably have a much better prompt than I've got right there. And it would start to rewrite the paper again, incorporating that information that you've put in. So it's sort of incorporates that information. It's sort of bibliography you want to be careful of, because sometimes you just sort of make stuff up. We've also got these sort of interesting options here, which we don't want to add emojis unless that particularly helps you in your research. You can add a polish, reading level. This is quite interesting because, of course, you may want to be writing this at quite a low level on purpose, just to sort of keep the arguments nice and simple until you actually really come to write the paper itself. Or, of course, you may want to have it slightly higher as well, and expand and suggest edits. So you want to sort of be editing this as well. So really what you want to do is see ChatGPT or a similar program as your sort of personal assistant as you write these papers. You want to be very careful not to get ChatGPT to write the paper for you. And I imagine for some people that can be quite tempting, particularly if you're at very tight deadlines, but steer clear away from that. You just want to use this as an assistant. And there's going to be a certain point where the arguments and the outline are made to an extent where you then need to take over and start to write it. But of course, even at that point, when you're writing it, you can use something like ChatGPT to help you to formulate the argument slightly better, suggest grammar, etc. But you, again, need to be so careful of that. There comes a certain line where you have to not cross or even get close to, and it becomes sort of very murky ethical questions and arguments at that point. So again, ChatGPT, Canvas particularly is really helpful for you just to keep writing, adding and suggesting and working with ChatGPT to really start to develop the structure and outline of your paper.